Good morning. Continue with reading my 2016 article, Music Educated and Uprooted, My Story of Rurality, Whiteness, Musicking and Teaching, published in Action Criticism and Theory for Music Education. I've been linking the actual article below on these videos. We're up to the theme Church on page 40. Singing at Mass. I don't remember if we had recently moved, if we were visiting family, but sitting in the pews with my family, I was the only one singing. The words of Mass are the same throughout the Catholic Church, wherever you are in the Anglophone world at least, but there are many different Masses musically. Naturally, different music composers compose the Mass differently, melodically, harmonically, rhythmically, etc. Despite the fact that I didn't know this particular Mass, I knew the words and was guessing at the melodies. This was my first conscious music-making experience because my mother made such a big deal out of it. How did you know these songs? I didn't have a word to tell her what I was doing. Improvising melodies based on what I, in an entirely non-theoretical way, knew what to expect the melodies to do based on the harmonies, which I had heard throughout my life and into the womb. Subconsciously absorbing the oral rules of the game. The experience helped me to feel that I could do something. Music, which was uniquely good. My parents, years later, made sure I sang with the choir for the 9 o'clock Children's Mass in Patton. They supported me in joining the high school band in 7th grade. They paid for drum lessons, also beginning in 7th grade, despite the economic hardships. It didn't hurt that the high school band director, knowing the economic situation in Patton and of my family in particular, only charged $4 for after-school lessons. It was a type of music experience expressed at church at a young age, which gave me a positive view of my musician self, which led me eventually to seeking out formal music learning experiences, and later still going to university to become a music teacher. My earliest music remembrance was of singing in church. I was educated in parochial schools, and the Catholic Church has guided my thinking and played a role in my life since. Even in the early 21st century, after 9/11, when I stopped attending Catholic Mass as much, studied Buddhism, and then joined neo-pagan groups, I was always aware that my thinking was somehow still rooted in Catholicism. When years later I returned to participation in the Catholic tradition, it was because Catholicism continued to make sense to me as a way to see the world, and especially a reason to care for people. The Church, through parochial schooling, experiences an altar server, and singing weekly in the choir, provided me with a symbolic language, a theory that has helped me make sense of my experiences since. That theory is often out of step with capitalist values. As Henry Nouwen wrote, quote, "But these voices calling me to upward mobility are completely absent from the gospel." End quote. The way of Jesus is the way toward the poor, the suffering, the marginal, toward all who ask for compassion. End quote. Like any theory, the insights of Catholic thinkers provide me a clear view of some things, but not others. According to Cornel West, this happens by mediating how I interpret my experiences, sufferings, joys, and undertakings. My experiences and dedication to Catholicism is not dissimilar to West's dedication to what he calls prophetic Christianity. Quote, "Prophetic Christianity has a distinctive, though not exclusive, capacity to highlight critical, historical, universal consciousness that yields a valiant disposition towards prevailing forms of individual and institutional evil, an unceasing suspicion of ossified and petrified forms of dogmatism, and a strong propensity to resist various types of cynicism and nihilism." And similar to West, Catholicism provided me with a particular set of dynamic stories, symbols, interpretations, and insights bequeathed by communities that came before. I was influenced by a particular group of Catholic scholars, including Thomas Merton, Leonardo Boff, both of whom I began to read in high school, Dorothy Day, Francis of Assisi, Thomas Berry, Henry Nouwen, Paulo Freire, and Ivan Illich. Many of these authors are Catholic anarchist and liberation theologians, and they have led me to my interest in theory and guided the way I conceive of flourishing as a human and consequently as a music teacher. Catholicism, through the 2 millennia of Catholic tradition, provided my young mind with a critical conception of history. Henry Nouwen described Christians as those who unceasingly ask critical questions of the society in which we live, and who continuously stress the necessity for conversation, not only of the individual, but also of the world. This dialogical historicism included a concept of human flourishing delinked, in a way many more recent Christian churches do not, from the dominant social ideology today, capitalism. Catholic tradition provided countless examples of pre-capitalist and anti-capitalist flourishing in the stories of the saints. It also provided a particular universalism that helped me to fight racism embedded in American culture and also America's critical problems with nationalism and extreme patriotism. Many political systems have come and gone in the past 2,000 years. Because the tradition I was most influenced by is critical, Catholic universalism is not viewed solely as a good. Christopher Columbus and his genocidal tendencies are uniquely Catholic, but our society's taken for granted universalism, learned in context with another universalism. Catholicism did not lead me to belief in 2 universalisms. Rather, by my logic, if there are 2 universals that are at times at odds with each other, there are no universals. Catholicism also provided me with a conception of meliorism, and I continue to believe in. People are progressing, and despite our setbacks, through work, societies are getting better. This conception of meliorism led me to choose a service profession, music education, rather than one where I was likely to get rich. It also has led me to continually refine my praxis through reflection and study. Here is a haiku. One universal enabled wariness of the trap of another. Okay, you can see here the extent to which I was influenced by postmodernist thinking 9 years ago, right? Especially comes to a head with the logic that if there are 2 universals, that there are no universals, right? Because they can't be universally true. And actually, over the last 9 years, I've grown actually closer to just accepting the Catholic universals, right, as more and more true, and the capitalist, modernist, individualist ones as false, which has opened up for me even more the Catholic conception of meliorism in my everyday work and what guides my every action, right? This concept of flourishing, right? And we all have to wrestle with this, right? We are raised to think that the universalism of the individualist capitalism that we experience, right? That universalism is natural, right? And most people that come to Christianity hold on to that universalism, that capitalism is an essential good, that privatizing things is good, making money is particularly good, that flourishing involves success in business, right? Or success, that development is good, right? But the Catholic tradition pushes against this in a distinctive way, not towards a skepticism that actually my postmodernism definitely could have led me towards, right? Realizing the destructive nature of capitalism and individualism, right? The Catholic tradition rooted in the family, right? And then in church communities and localism, right? This led me out of potentially dark, selfish places, right? And my experience with Buddhism and with neo-paganism did not do that. Now, could it do it for somebody else? Maybe I was reading the wrong authors, or maybe they just weren't speaking to me in a symbolic language that I needed, right? The symbols, right? These are the symbols that I need, right? To see the mirror of God in another's eyes. Right? Dynamic stories, interpretations, right? And then to see how dogmatism is ossified, right, in capitalism. Okay, well, next week we'll start with page 43. Have a good day.